To begin the second part of the day's program, I would now request Dr. Paul Taylor to please deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you so much to Mr. Mathur. Sorry, I'm a little slower than I was in the past. For those of you who know me, you may be surprised to see me walking temporarily with two canes for a while longer. Actually, we had a wonderful opening of the book launch, I should say, and an event for the 50th anniversary of the Sikh Foundation in San Francisco in May of this year. And they asked me to give some comments for the launch of the book, which I was so honored to work on with Sonia Damian, which she showed you about. And I was very happy to do that, but when I looked at the program everybody got, it said at that point in the program, after some other wonderful things that happened, it said that there would be the book launch with the opening comments about the book by Dr. Paul Michael Taylor, to be followed by a dance performance. That's what it said in the program. So I got up, and I said, I just want to amend a little bit what was in the program. First of all, the comments really should be by me and Sonia both, not just by me. But second of all, I want to emphasize that I'm only strictly about here for the opening comments, and that surely the organizers must have somebody else in mind for the dance performance, not me. Anyway, so... But now we are coming to the second session, and so I will be very brief because everybody is going to have to be a little bit succinct in this second session. So please, we don't want to get so interested in the topic, even though it is so interesting, we don't want to get so interested that we miss the concert. But we are guaranteed, how we made sure that we would guarantee that would not happen. Our last speaker of the session is Professor Surinder Singh, and he's the person who's also the head of the Raj Academy Conservatoire and performing in the concert. So if it runs overtime, I suppose everybody at the concert will simply have to just wait for us because they can't start without him. But no, we'll be succinct. I want to first call on His Excellency Ambassador Navtej Sarna because he's going to describe a very short video presentation by Bobby Bedi, a pre-recorded video presentation about the work that Bobby Bedi has been doing in the field of Sikh heritage preservation, after which Ambassador Sarna will give his own talk next, and the title of that is something that is one of those very contentious in some ways, but carefully balanced views of Guru Gobind Singh that we saw referenced in several papers this morning. The title is Guru Gobind Singh, Seen Through the Zafarnama and from the Perspective of the Sikh Martial Tradition. That is, both that combination of the martial tradition and activism versus that combination, versus the other side of the peace and tolerance and other perspectives. After that, we invite Kristen McKnight Sethi to give, Kristen McKnight Sethi of George Washington University and Corcoran Gallery of Art to give her paper on portraits of the Gurus in Sikh art. And then Professor Surinder Singh of the Raj Academy Conservatoire, whose title is Guru Gobind Singh, The Forgotten Legend of India's Musical Heritage. So without further ado, please welcome Ambassador Navtej Singh Sarna. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Dr. Paul Taylor mentioned that I would begin with introducing a short video. Very briefly, I want to give you why I wanted to show you this brief video and why we have thought about making that. We very often forget what a young religion Sikhism is. And when I wrote my book, the book of Nanak, I was actually sitting in the center of Delhi in the library of the India Habitat Center and staring out of the window. And I was thinking about this question. And then suddenly I realized that I was actually able to see the Lodi tombs. And the Lodi tombs were of the time when Guru Nanak was alive. And if you looked further away, you could see Humayun's tomb. And when Guru Nanak passed into eternity, Humayun was still very much alive. And if you looked even further down the Delhi landscape, you saw the Qutub Minar. And I was amazed when I realized that the Qutub Minar had been in existence 200 years before Guru Nanak was born. So the realization came quite suddenly that actually Sikhism is a very young religion. Guru Nanak walked the earth when Christopher Columbus was discovering this land, so it's not that far away. He walked the earth when Vasco da Gama was finding the route to India. Shakespeare's completed works were actually compiled before the Guru Granth Sahib. So this is just to give you a perspective that you're dealing with a message which is very fresh, whose concerns are very close to our time. They are not lost in some hoary past. So these are concerns which are of today. So if you go through the Guru Granth Sahib, as we had this phenomenal exposition to begin with by Nikki Guninder Kaur Singh and others, the musical aspects of Guru Granth Sahib, if you go through all this, you find that the values that it talks about are very modern. What is it? Secularism and equality, gender equality, role of women in society, environment, these sharing and caring. Now, these are, what we talk about today in our social and political discourse. So these are very modern values. However, because of the pace of change of the world, because of the pace of change of technology, it's very difficult for somebody to go, a young boy, particularly if they are not living in India, to be a boy or a girl, to be told that, no, you must go and understand this. It's not easy. You can't get them to do it easily. So the idea behind this project, which is going to be put up in the new museum coming up in Rakabganj Gurdwara in New Delhi, is twin. One, the target audience is your own children. How do you make them understand these basic values by showing quickly and in a technologically acceptable way this message? And the second audience is the international audience. In fact, when we sat, I say we because the commentary for this project has been written by me. It's being produced by Bobby Bedi. The voice you will hear is Kabir Bedi. And there are very phenomenally highly accomplished Grammy Award producers of music and modern artists and all that involved in that. So the idea was, okay, the target is a foreign ambassador comes to Delhi and says, I don't know anything about these guys, so how can I find out? So he walks in there, and in 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, he should be able to get something about it in a language he understands. So this is the idea. This is called the Mool project, but all the modern technology is being used in this projection. There is a dome, there are moving chairs, there is a feeling of perfume, breeze, rain, and you have this moving drama in 360 degrees. So it's a very immersive project. Bobby is very ambitious about it. At the moment, he wants to put it up in one permanent place, but he has an idea that he'll go on to things like Google Glass, etc., so that you just put it on and you can see it. So this is a very short presentation. He couldn't come here personally, but he's done this on the West Coast, I understand it, in a very extensive manner. So this is a 5-minute presentation just to give you a feel, and this is the explanation of why this is being done. Yes. You can put the lights off.
Once a journey took the Guru and his companion Mardana to the Jagannath temple in Puri, in Odisha. As the Guru and Mardana camped near the temple, the priests were performing the evening prayer, the Aarti. They held beautiful salvas in their hands, decorated with earthen lamps and flowers and incense. They swayed from side to side as they sang melodious hymns to the accompaniment of bells and conches. It was a beautiful ceremony, but Guru Nanak was unmoved. To him, this was not prayer, it was merely ritual. When the priests expressed their anger, the Guru explained to them that the true worship of the Creator was being performed by the very elements of the universe, the sky and the stars, the sun and the moon, the forests and the wind, accompanied by the music of creation. The universe is the salver. The sun and moon are the lamps. The stars in heaven are the pearls. The fragrance of sandal is the incense. Fanned by the winds, all for thee, the great forests and fields of flowers. Oh, what a beautiful aarti is being performed for you, O destroyer of fear. Rabindranath Tagore was once asked why he hadn't written an anthem for the world, like he had written for India. Tagore replied that an anthem for the universe had already been written in the 16th century by Guru Nanak. So enamored was he of this celestial aarti that he went on to translate it into Bengali. Just as Guru Nanak believed that the true worship of the Creator was being performed by nature, he did not believe that the path to God involved renunciation or retreats to forests and mountains. True path to God meant living righteously in the world, adhering to the core values that Guru Nanak preached and meditating on the true name. This message is best illustrated by his discussion on Mount Sumer, also known as Mount Kailash, with 84 siddhas or ancient sages who had meditated long and deep and possessed great power and wisdom. Guru Nanak and the siddhas had a spiritual debate. They inundated him with many questions and argued that it was not possible to be part of the world and follow the path of meditation and spirituality. Guru Nanak responded, like the lotus is untouched by water and a duck swimming against the current stays dry. Similarly, with divine utterances in our mind and repeating his name on our lips, we cross the tempestuous ocean of the world. Guru Nanak preached that escapism was not the answer to the world's problems, but righteous living was. The path to God had to be pursued by fulfilling one's duties in this world as a householder. Work hard and honestly. Share in charity. Treat all men as equal and meditate on his name. What you have witnessed was just the beginning. The story continues and travels through the treacherous terrain of history to reach where it has today. Even though centuries have passed, the core beliefs of this religion not only remain intact, but considering where the world stands, have become even more relevant. These values are the bedrock of the Sikh faith. They are also the building blocks of an enduring community, essential for the sustenance of any civilization.
Well, that was just a sample, and I think it'll feel and sound very different when you can actually feel the cold and the snow and the rain and the night falling. So that's just to keep you informed as to the kind of things which are happening. And I think as you look to the next generations and how to educate them, maybe some of these ideas will be useful here. Do we have more lights here? I'm very much aware of the time constraint that we are under, so I'm not going to give a very long exposition. I just need some light on the stage. Yeah. A long exposition, but I think the idea that was mentioned, and in many ways it's been covered by the earlier speakers, was that of the martial tradition. We are very often, and this is again something of a colonial inheritance that we have got, that the Sikhs are considered a martial race. And possibly some of this, if one goes back to 19th century military history, you will realize why, because how the British formed the Sikh regiments and Gurkha regiment and others, and then had their own larger purpose of doing that, and also encouraging this concept of Sikhs as a martial race. Yes, they were building on something. They were building on the fact that the Sikhs, when the Khalsa was formed, as at the time of Guru Gobind Singh, yes, the Sikhs were wearing arms. But when you go back to Guru Nanak's time, you don't see that. You don't see that, you don't hear of it. So it actually, the concept of martyrdom, which came into Sikhism, is first seen at the time of Guru Arjan, the fifth Guru, who was captured and tortured by Emperor Jahangir. And he gave himself up as a sacrifice. That was the first major instance of pacific martyrdom. And as the I'll just describe this. This was to start a new tradition in the faith, the demonstration of one's conviction through the ultimate sacrifice. It showed how one man, without the use of physical strength and force, could defeat oppression morally. In the words of Sikh savant Dr. Balbir Singh, Guru Arjan showed through his martyrdom that the oppressor can do no more than take your life. And even when he takes it, it does not fall in his hands. And you do not lose it, because it was never yours to begin with. You had already handed it over to your master. But it was quite clear that pacific martyrdom was not going to be enough. So in fact, it is said that when Guru Arjan was going into imprisonment, he told his 11-year-old son, who later became Guru Har Gobind, the sixth Guru of the Sikhs, that you will bear arms and you will have to fight tyranny. And it was Guru Har Gobind who was the first Guru who actually wore not one but two swords. And they were symbolic. It was called the Miri and Piri. It was the temporal sword and the spiritual sword. So it was again not pure arms and pure weapons. it was arms and weapons which were tempered with spirituality. And this, of course, carried on, and when it came to the time of Guru Gobind Singh, since it is his life and work we are talking of today, I will come straight down to that. When he received his father's head at the age of 9, he knew that these were going to be difficult times. And so right from his youth, he and his companions trained at Anandpur in war games, in weapons, in the art of battle, and so on, while he went on at Paonta, as we have seen earlier today, to master several languages, poetry, ancient texts, and so on. He actually fought 16 battles in his life, right from Bhangani to Chamkaur and Nadon later. And they were all battles against the Mughals. Not one of them was his aggression. Not one of them was for territorial acquisition. All the battles were fought to protect freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, and to create a place where a community could live in peace without being tyrannized all the time. And in the most famous incident, or the event, I should say, 1699, when the Khalsa was created, what did he actually do? By saying that I want 5 people who should give me their head, in one stroke, he removed the fear of death. So when people came, they were already reconciled to death. There was no fear of death left. So suddenly, in a demoralized population, he had injected a new spirit of people who were unafraid to die, a people who would stand for a cause, people who would be recognized because he gave you the 5 symbols, and who would not be able to hide. And if they believed in something, they would fight for it. So this transformation of the spirit was actually a kind of a miracle. When you go back to the early 1700s and see the conditions, see the oppression of the Mughal governors and the Mughal rulers, and suddenly find that he had created this brotherhood, which was, we talked of caste earlier and equality. This was a brotherhood in which people had lost their caste, so to speak. They were free of their caste. They were free of their past. They were free of what they did. They were free of their region from where they came. So this was a true brotherhood of the spirit. And that is from where the strength of the community and the so-called martial spirit carried on, because then after that, they fought battle after battle. Now we come to the main siege of Anandpur, where Aurangzeb's armies more than once laid siege to Anandpur. And at the end of this very long siege, when the Guru's followers finally said that if you don't leave, everybody in this city will die, because we cannot handle this any longer, so why don't you and your family leave? And he didn't want to do that, but then the Mughal commanders gave a pledge on the Quran that you will get safe passage. And this pledge was given. He knew it would be broken, and promptly, as he left, and when he was crossing the river Sirsa, they were attacked. He was separated. The younger sons and his mother, wives, were separated. He and his 2 sons and a handful of followers. So there was a complete act of treachery on the part of the Mughals. And thereafter, when he fought several battles, the most famous of those was the Battle of Chamkaur, in which his 2 eldest sons attained martyrdom, and 40 people fought thousands of people by coming out 5 at a time. In military history, probably it is one of the most dramatic battles. And it's not old, it's all recorded. So 5 of them would come out and fight until they died. And then another 5 would come out. And then ultimately, he and 3 or 4 were left, and then he went off and was in the jungles alone. And then he went to Talwandi Sabo, and there, after knowing that all 4 sons of his had been killed, he wrote this letter called the Zafarnama to Aurangzeb. Now, this is a letter written in Persian verse. It's a letter of 111 verses. And it essentially puts up an uncompromising mirror to the Mughal emperor. It indicts him and his commanders against a spiritual frame of how to govern and how to fight, and exposes the lack of morality in the governance as well as in the conduct of war. It foresees the end of the empire that is dominated by falsehood and whose innards have been hollowed out by spiritual decay. At the same time, it puts out his own spiritual and moral philosophy of how he sees the world, how he sees creation, how he sees God. So it's 111 very powerful verses. It is said that Aurangzeb received the letter, and here you get into conflicting expositions of what actually happened. But it is said that the two Sikhs who took the letter to the Deccan delivered it to Aurangzeb. He read it on his deathbed, and he was so moved by it that he actually sent back a messenger and say that go to the governor of Punjab, the Mughal governor, and look at this situation, and let's address what is happening. What was happening there was religious tyranny, religious intolerance, and so on. So this is the sort of background of the Zafarnama. I just wanted to explain this because very often we hear of this, but we actually don't know what a beautiful piece of poetry this is, and written in very beautiful Persian. I will, in the interest of time, I will not go on much further, but perhaps I will read out 5 or 6 verses which might just give you a flavor of the poetry. The first 12 verses are actually in praise of God. So they simply tell you how Guru Gobind Singh saw God and how he conveys it to Aurangzeb. So I'll just do 3 verses. I'll read out the Persian of the 3 verses and then the English. So that'll give you the sort of rhythm. Kamale Karamat Kayam Kareem, Raza Baksh Razak Rahako Rahim, Ama Baksh Bakshin Deo Dastgir, Raza Baksh Rozi Deo Dil Pazir, Shahenshah Khubi Deo Rahinamu, Ki Begun Bechun Chun Be Namu. He is the immortal Lord, eternal, all-powerful, giver of joy and salvation, bountiful and merciful. O merciful one who protects and guides, O charming one who forgives and provides, mightiest of emperors, giver of good, guide without peer, ethereal and formless, he is unique, beyond compare. And then he begins his indictment of Aurangzeb. And again, I will do 3 verses. He says, Mara etbare bar in kasam neest, ki ezat gava ast, yazdan yakist. Na katra mara etbaro baro ast, ki bakshi o divan hama kizab go ast. Kasse kole Quran kunad itbar, haman roz akhir Shabad Mard Khwar. I have no faith at all in the oath that you swear, that the God who is one, your witness does bear. Not a jot of trust do I now have in you, whose generals and ministers are all liars, untrue. Such oaths on the Quran, whosoever does believe, will be wretched at the end, destroyed beyond reprieve. So this is the kind of indictment he does, and then I think the emblematic verse of the Zafarnama in a way encompasses the nature of this martial tradition. The Sikhs were supposed to be an army of saint soldiers who had the sword in one hand and the rosary in the other. So this verse, I think, is all, and I will end with that. It says, Chukar az hame hilate dar guzasht, halalast burdan bishamshir dast. When all has been tried, yet justice is not in sight, it is then right to pick up the sword, it is then right to fight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I just want to, he was perhaps too humble to say this himself, but to mention what he was reading from. And Sonia, hopefully you have this available on the Sikh Foundation website. If not, you should get it, because my reading this made me so enthusiastic about this conference and this activity. It's the Zafarnama of Guru Gobind Singh, translated by Navtesh Sarna and published by Penguin Books. And it is one of the most wonderful, short but wonderful books I think I've read in a long time, and I've definitely recommend it to everybody if I may do so. Sorry, thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. Well, thank you, Ambassador Sarna, that was fantastic, and thank you, Dr. Taylor, for including me. I feel very honored to be here. And Dr. Taylor asked me to speak today about the portraits of the gurus. And so the first place I think perhaps to start when we talk about portraits of the gurus is to ask, what is a portrait? And so, typically when we think of portraits, we think of depictions of the physical form, right? Depictions of somebody's face, somebody's body, somebody's likeness, perhaps dress. But that becomes a little bit difficult because so many of the images that we have of the gurus were created long after they passed, right? So we know that I think the earliest sort of official portrait from the Janam Sakhi is 1658 or thereabouts, which would suggest that we don't necessarily know very specifically what the facial features of the gurus were. So that complicates our understanding of a portrait, perhaps. Another thing we can perhaps think about when we think about portraiture are depictions of ideas, depictions of philosophy, depictions of values, theoretical ideas. And then perhaps the third thing that we could be looking at when we think about portraits are depictions of history, depictions of place, of time, of the way things were. We can think about art history, we can think about styles of depiction. And so that's what I would like to do right now, is just to look at a few examples of portraits and try and understand how we can start to make sense of this really wonderful, complex, and slightly messy history of portraiture. So, we think of the earliest portraits of the gurus as coming from the Janam Sakhi, and we have that starting around the 17th century and going through to the 19th century, and I'm showing you here an image from the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, and these are narrative images. These are hagiographic, right? These are depictions that reveal to us something of, in this case, Guru Nanak's life, something of his humanity, something of his faith, something of his values. And we have the image that you see here is an image of Guru Nanak consoling Mardana's son after he's passed. And we have here the Guru coming and sharing this very mournful time and providing some comfort to Mardana's son. And the artist has taken the time to not just depict the scene that we see at the bottom of the composition of Guru Nanak and Mardana's son, but also taking the time to depict the well, right? The well and these wonderful bovine figures that we have, the beautiful, these lovely trees, and a depiction of this rural space, this humble space, this village space. And so we get from this something of Guru Nanak's humanity, his personality, his character. Here, another early 18th century Janamsakhi image of Guru Nanak visiting the humble carpenter by Lalo. And again, this is a way in which a painting, maybe we could argue a portrait of the Guru, is showing us the way he values honesty, the way he values hard work, and the artist has taken the time to depict all these wonderful tools that are used by the carpenter in a scene very reminiscent of 18th century Rajput painting of other kinds of subjects. So we have these narrative images, which we might argue are portraits, which I think we can suggest that they are portraits. And then we have other kinds of image that appear more iconic. And these are the kinds of images like the 18th century one you see here of Guru Nanak with Mardana and Bala. And we see the Guru seated in the manner of an Indian Maharaja. He's seated on a low throne. He has a wonderful bolster pillow behind him. There's a textile canopy above his head, and we have Mardana playing the rebab, which we've learned so much more about this afternoon, and Bala holding the marchal of peacock feathers to signify that we are in the presence of a very important person, right? And these are the typical features, the characteristics that we see in a lot of Indian painting to signal that the body at the center of the composition is an important one, is a royal one perhaps, is a sacred one. So these ways that composition illuminates this for us. And they're seated in a lush landscape, these wonderful articulation of these palm leaves behind, and the beautiful blue sky above. We also have images of the Sikh gurus that remind us of compositional and stylistic features more prominent for other kinds of subjects. And here is an image of Guru Tegh Bahadur in the manner of a Mughal courtier. Right? This is very comparable to the kinds of images that we see, depictions of Jahangir, depictions of Shah Jahan, in which the Guru is standing in profile with a nimbus, large nimbus, holding a falcon, wearing a jamma. Is that an alarm for us? I hope not. Oh, that's a phone, okay. It sounded like we were going to evacuate us. So we have him here in the manner of a Mughal courtier or a Mughal emperor with a minimal background that really focuses our attention as viewers on the body of the Guru. Similarly, this image that we've seen before that Sonia showed us, an image of Guru Gobind Singh, here also in the manner of a Pahari prince, and all the features that we think of when we think of Pahari painting, that wonderful recession into the far deep background that shows us the extent of this lovely mountainous landscape, with the depictions of the small village seen in the upper left, and the focus on the body of the Guru mounted on a very active horse. His limbs are actively moving, and again, surrounded by attendants, one attendant holding a panka and two others with the marchal. Again, these really exquisite details that emerge from Mughal painting tradition, influenced in part by some of the circulating European prints that were moving through the Mughal court beginning in the 16th century, and then it sort of flourished in the Pahari painting tradition. And here with the focus, a very iconic image of the Guru. And then we have other images that in some ways develop from these more iconic images, these really exquisite miniature painting traditions, and take on the aura of a kind of personal devotion that really become devotional images. And this is a really exquisite miniature ivory from the 19th century that shows us in very intimate detail a kind of jewel-like presentation, a contemplative object here of the Guru Nanak. And then there are popular images, and these are oftentimes we think of them as bazaar prints or calendar prints. These are things that are not made with the finest of pigments, as we saw with those beautiful paintings earlier. These are inexpensive materials. These are inexpensive paper, in this case a wood block print. So these are things that were made en masse, multiples made. Here we see Guru Gobind Singh hunting, and many of the iconographical features that we start to associate with Guru Gobind Singh are there, right? We have him seated on top of a horse with a falcon, surrounded by attendants, right? And what we see with these kinds of popular images is now these images are accessible to so many. These are not exclusively for elite patrons. These are not exclusively for the court, for royal commission, but these are things for universal consumption, things that can be held and looked upon by many. Similarly, this is a wonderful image from a 19th century album that John Lockwood Kipling compiled. Here again, Guru Gobind Singh, and we're seeing some of those same iconographic features. Right now we have fewer attendants, but he's seated, mounted on a horse that's actively moving in this sort of hunting posture with a nimbus around his head to show that he is a sacred person, an important figure. He has a single attendant holding the murchal of peacock feathers. He's holding his falcon. So all of those iconographic details that signal to us that this is Guru Gobind Singh remain, but the quality is gestural. It's quick. We have these very loose lines and swaths of color to enliven the image, but these are similarly things that would spread, would move, would have other lives, and would be passed on to many, many people in their multiples. And then perhaps images that are maybe more familiar. These are similar to the woodcut prints that we were just looking at. Also calendar art, right? These are bazaar pictures that, again, circulate in mass reproduction and that pull from the standard iconography. Here, Guru Nanak seated on a lovely carpet, again, to sort of signal his special character, against a bolster in a natural environment with the parrot hanging from the tree. And we see all of these symbols, again, reproduced for mass consumption and for devotion. And these are objects that people then would take into their home and enjoy. In terms of portraiture, we can also start to think about individual artistic expression. And we've already seen the work of Arpana Kaur, and I show you another image here from 2006 that's specifically looking at Guru Nanak's journeys, his travels, and the artist is indicating in these sort of map-like forms that glow in blue surrounding the body of the Guru, and has abstracted his form. We see his prayer beads. He's seated in a posture that is reminiscent to other kinds of images that we've seen, but now there's an emphasis on a minimalist interpretation, simple lines and gesture, and really exquisite detail of the face, the contemplative, meditative face. I'd also like us to consider thinking about portraiture beyond paper, perhaps beyond paint even, or prints, as we've been looking at in more classical definitions of portraiture. And I'm showing you here an image from a private collection in Delhi of, again, that sort of, that iconographic image, that iconic image of Guru Nanak seated with Mardana and Bala at the center of this embroidered textile that may be familiar to many of you as a sort of Bulgari style of embroidery on cotton with silk thread, beautifully rendered depiction that we see here, and the silk threads themselves quite sumptuous in their surface. And the size, note also the size of this. We have a square composition similar to this rumal or coverlet, also embroidered, this time on satin with metallic thread. In the Asian Art Museum collection and in other collections, including the Kampani collection, a similar piece. And now what we see is that this iconic image of, in this case, Guru Nanak with his companions is being used very, very likely to cover the Guru Granth Sahib. This is now a textile to cover, to mark as sacred the Guru Granth Sahib, and perhaps these depictions themselves, a kind of double portrait. And then finally, I want to propose that we also consider the definition of portraiture to extend, again, beyond paper, beyond paint, beyond print, including textiles, and perhaps beyond even textiles, to think about how architecture can serve as a kind of portrait. And so I'm showing to you now, of course, a site, an image that is perhaps quite familiar, and a site that is certainly familiar. And can we start to think about Harmandir Sahib or Darbar Sahib as a kind of portrait of the Guru Granth Sahib, a public portrait, a visualization, a depiction in many ways? It becomes a kind of a symbol for that sacred book that's housed inside. And then also circulates in this case, 19th century photographic depictions of the site, but in all the many different iterations and multiplications that we can see of depictions of the site. And then finally, at the Khalsa Heritage Memorial Complex in Anandapur Sahib, again, thinking about not just the architectural space as a kind of portrait, as a kind of presence or depiction of many of the gurus and their history, their faith, their humanity, their values, but also thinking about the very diverse depictions within that space, multimedia, multisensorial. So I will leave you with those images and those thoughts there, and thank you again for your time and for all the wonderful presentations.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarna, for having us here, Indian Embassy, and Dr. Paul Taylor. I want to share this thought from three angles. The angle from the ancient India. India evolved so many times. Mughals came, British. But ancient India. And I want to look into Guru Gobind Singh also, his contribution. The contribution that we made sure that we forget. But before I share that, I also want to share that this is not a complaint to community. And this is not either a criticism to the scholars and historians. This is just a contemplation, and I think opportunities like this are very important for us to share what we found. The third angle is my own personal angle. Because the Guru Gobind Singh and myself is a very personal thing. I'm not a Sikh because of a community. Because there's hundreds and thousands of people follow Guru Gobind Singh. There are so many other who follow Muhammad Sahib. There are so many hundreds and thousands of friends I have so far. I mean, so many people out there who are Hindus. The Guru is a very personal choice, a conscious choice. When you go to school, you need to know what you are looking for. I was looking for something. I started looking for very early with the question to my grandmother. Because if I don't share my journey, I'm just about to share. It's a lot of information in 3-4 words. I think it'll be easy if I share it from my angle. The Guru is a navigator for me because I wanted to drive my life successfully. I started asking questions. Why isn't it okay for me to go to temple? I belong to Indian Air Force family, so 2 years here, 2 years there. I really didn't have Punjabi culture. I couldn't even speak Punjabi. In turbulent times, I was sent to my grandparents in Punjab, and I remember those tough days with my own cousins when I ended up in temple and really got teased for weeks, I don't belong there. So my question to my grandmother was that, why do I have to go to Gurdwara? This is at the age of 9 where I started finding a connection with Guru Gobind Singh or Guru Nanak. And that was my key to open a lock later on to ancient India too. There's a word I will be sharing later on even in the concert with you. The word ancient India gave to this planet is called Nad Yoga, the yoga of sound. Something before the words. Something before we say, if I say sit down, I can say this word with anger. I can say this word with pain. I can say this word in a joy and inviting you. But every single time I change the tempo and the emotional pitch of it, the meaning will change. The Nad Yoga, ancient India, incredible program. If you will look into before Guru Nanak and a couple of thousand years even before that, you'll find how India was incredible and why it became so powerful. Finding a decimal is not an easy thing, right? And I heard so many things from my teachers, Udasis and Nirmalas, Buddhists. The Islamic teacher I had who will come to share with me, so I find out where do I want to end up in my spiritual practices. When I asked my grandmother a question, why do I have to go to Gurdwara? She said, you got to find that for yourself. So next day I had a tuition with a Buddhist monk, and another teacher came to teach me about the Hindus, and I learned Islam. I think really, personally, I think that I became Sikh by choice. I didn't inherit Sikhi. But India and my present, ancient India, and my present, and Guru Gobind Singh, they play incredible role. At the age of 19, I thought I was done completely, like I achieved what I wanted to. I was just living on cloud 9. The day I thought I have everything, next day I had accident and ended up in coma, lost everything I had. I couldn't pursue my career. And all of these religious talks, rituals, this is right and wrong, became irrelevant. I started questioning Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh and Guru Granth Sahib and Muhammadji and Jesus, everybody. And that day, the day I started healing, suddenly I heard something in my consciousness. I was just talking to myself. The quote from Guru Nanak, Gaviye, Suniye, Man rakhiye pao, dukh par har, sukh kar le jaye. And it took me back into ancient India, the yoga of sound, the emotional pitch, and the rhythm of life put together to express. That was the Kavya. And listening beyond the word, in the context, it was supposed to be, hey, this is why probably Nanak Guru is writing his Bani in Asa, or in Vadhans, or in Tukhari. You heard from Rabab and Jasveer Kaur. The rags in Guru Granth Sahib. It makes the word come alive. Those are the emotions of Nanak. He's a feeling. And if you want to follow, then it's okay, just bow and get past. But if you are seeking, if you are looking for your answers, I was looking for my answers. I questioned this at the age of 13 to my teacher. I remember Wand Chakkana is not Nanak's concept. Zakat is in Islam too. Everybody shares. Your charity begins at home, the Christianity. So Nanak's concept, who made these concepts? Who is projecting Nanak in a different light? So a new gateway opened for me. It was a teacher's training program by Guru Nanak Sahib. That's why he did. Teacher's training. He wasn't making students like Naths were doing. The chelas were made and chelas stayed chelas. Nanak started making teachers. Lena converted into Guru Angad Sahib. Ape Guru Chela concept started with Nanak Guru, and he asked for the head. Jauto prem khilan ka chao, sirta har tali gali moriya. 200 years refining the psyche. 200 years it took for Nanak Guru's school to build a curriculum for us. And Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, his legacy. You need to understand how beautiful his work is. If you just place those chapters back into the books of a history about Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, the missing chapters, the missing link. You learned earlier that Taus was made by Guru Gobind Singh. Taus, as Dr. Sarna's work on Zafarnama, the master of Persian, Guru Gobind Singh. Even today, Oxford, Zafarnama, without that, the Persian isn't complete back in England. Great work by Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, giving an instrument, building a bridge between two ancient Indian instruments, Veena and Sarangi. Now the layman, the person who's going to fight, the person who's not educated, person who is working hard to meet, take a bread home at the evening, he's serving those who are looking for something just, mere, okay, this is my Babaji, this is my Guru, this is my teacher, and I just bow my head to, and everything will be sorted. The people who were beyond this scenario came to Guru Nanak Sahib. And I learned three things. The Nanak propagated about health. The very first thing he said, it was a health. It wasn't one chakana, it was your health. So I was able to relate to, I was suffering, in a way dying on the bed. I wanted my health back. I wanted my dream back. I wanted my life back. And Nanak was saying that very early in Japji Guru Nanak Sahib, Gaviye, Suniye, Man Rakhiye Pao. So health was, in his quote, it was guarantee written that Dukh Parhar, Sukh Kar Le Jai. The second thing he says is happiness. And third thing is love. That made me sick. I this is my personal experience, kind of had enough with religious angle. And so I look into the history after the empire, the British Empire. Everything is a borrowed vision, They changed everything for India. The people understand anything about music. If you don't understand even, go search this word, Vishnu Narayan Patkhande. Or search for Ernest Trump, a great job. How empire did things. The India's work of emotional study. How you're supposed to manifest the study of your feelings and how you compose the moods. How you become capable to express and understand beyond the words the context and a concept both at the same time. That study was turned into performing arts. Mughals did that too. This is why Nanak Guru broke that rabab. A new rabab was created on Nanak's engineering, the 5-string rabab. Rabab came from the white cloud. It's called in Persia. It came from the Persia. Guru Gobind Singh's taus is the bridge. He is a patriot, of course he understands the power that India's educational system is offering, because they're not here to build Hindus or Muslims or Christians. They are investing into humanity, the health of humanity, happiness of humanity, and the love. One who doesn't love itself, how can that person love God? The person who's not in love with itself, how can that person love a society or country? Forget about God. So I was looking for health, and Guru Gobind Singh here made life so simple. So simple. One finger, and that's it. Just one finger on one string. Dilruba was so easy. Easy for me to cry without the tears. Cry beyond books. That I can actually express the pain happening in my heart. I learned how to diagnose my emotional state. And I understood that I have to turn my stress into success. I understood that what's gone is gone. I have to build my life. And I built my life. Thanks to the curriculum given by Guru Gobind Singh. Because it's Guru Gobind Singh who finalized Sri Guru Granth Sahib. All the rags were placed in numerology. The numbers were stored behind at the end, so nothing can get changed in it. The titles were situated in a particular way. Rag Jajavanti, the creation of his father, Guru Tegh Bahadur Maharaj, was installed in Sri Guru Granth Sahib as a 60th rag. Many of don't even understand there are not 31 rags in Sri Guru Granth Sahib, because we just read book after book after book. And we don't bother to read the source, Sri Guru Granth Sahib. So compilation of Sri Guru Granth Sahib actually depicted the musicological power of ancient India. It's the most incredible granth you will ever find, who is complete in every sense. You find South Indian system into it as much North Indian. There are 6 rags in Sri Guru Granth Sahib: Rag Gaudi Dakhani, Bilawal Dakhani, Vadahans Dakhani, Prabhati Dakhani, Ramkali Dakhani. These are the rags from South Indian system, the genres. And one thing I want to share with you, today India is known for its musical genre called Khyal. You all probably have heard this word Khyal. Today, India's music is understood from this genre. You know who gave this Khyal? Who invented this genre? Was Guru Gobind Singh. It was not Amir Khusro. It was Guru Gobind Singh. You cannot find anything prior to Guru Gobind Singh about the Khyal. One of his composition, which we will be reciting later on, Mitra Pyare Nu Hal Murida Da Kehna. It's a contemplation. It's words and thoughts contemplating, moving in a different direction, where the physical pain is turned into a very incredible, beautiful spiritual quest. Dilruba in 1690 at Anandapur Sahib. I remember my mother said, dead body was found at Kartarpur. The person's name was Bhai Babak, the contemporary of Guru Arjan. The body was beyond recognition because the fire went on the face, and it was, they needed to recognize how they found that it was Bhai Babak, the teacher of Guru Tegh Bahadur Maharaj, who taught Guru Tegh Bahadur Maharaj Mardang, that he had his arbab on his shoulder, even in the battlefield. And I remember my grandmother again and again repeating for years these 3 words in my ear. Shastra, the weapon, so that you are a responsible citizen. It's not to commit the crime, it's not to be unwanted policeman, it's to be responsible citizen, that you can protect you and those who cannot be protected. The weapon around you, the Shastra for the Sikh, and Shastra, Sri Guru Granth Sahib, the Bani. Without that, your dimension is not complete. And third was the Astra, and that is the Dilruba or Taus or Rabab or Saranda. These are the weapons which will turn your focus into incredible strength. Because everything revolves around the focus. I usually say this to my daughter whenever I have one hand on steering wheel. The little one always says, "Oh, Papa, put the other hand on the steering wheel too." It's just a hands. And I say to her, if my focus is not here, what will happen? And she said, we'll have an accident. And this is why Guru quotes again and again. He says, Sabd Guru Surt Tun Chela. If your Surt is not there, if your focus is not there, you will have an accident. So the health. So I stay healthy. I came in from India to Russia, then from there to Germany, and they all gave up. They told me that I won't be able to even sit in a wheelchair. Forget about moving around independently. And I do play polo even now. And it was so simple. Dr. Taylor, it's just simple. All I had to do, stitch my emotions as Guru Gobind Singh put it together. The clock of my life, those 60 rags, and the Bani, the instructions were given very clear. The Khyal, how to be the meditation, how to turn my pain into joy, That's what I learned from the Khyal. The Taus made my journey very simple because I didn't have to now spend years and years learning the instrument. It was clear this composition to be sung like this. I just followed it. It contributed so much into my health and so much into my happiness. I think I started loving myself, accepting myself, and became stronger and stronger and stronger. The legacy of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj. He is an investor into your happiness, into your smile, into your health. The legacy of his contribution musically. Look into Sri Guru Granth Sahib's 60 rags, his Dilruba, his Taus, his genre given to you as a khyal, and also a lifestyle. When you look into Jap Sahib, like for example, Puchang Priyat Chand, that will change your voc, how to be ahead in life. If you will read his Savaya, it will say, Pahe gahe jab te tumre tab te ko aakh tere nahi anyo. It's not a straight 1-4-1-4 rhythm. It is 1 1/4, reflecting your breathing pattern. This is why very few people of his army were able to still hold hundreds and thousands. Because he didn't just embedded a concept, he gave them how to do it. One who doesn't fight for itself cannot fight for his country. One who doesn't love itself cannot love anybody. Forget about the God. But we also need to, all historians, scholars, I know many people working very hard. We need to look into this seriously so the Taus and Dilruba, Saranda, Rabab, Jodi, Mardang, all the instruments you're going to see today. If American borns, if Germans and Spanish can do it, I think we Indians need to look into it, because you play, you open the chapter of health, happiness and love. Don't forget the legacy of Guru Gobind Singh. It is an incredible chapter in the history of India. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think you will agree with me that it has been a most fascinating afternoon, and we have been through a tremendous journey. I'd like to thank all of you. I'd like to thank all of the speakers. I'd like to thank all the people who've taken so much effort planning this. I've already, of course, Dr. Paul Taylor. I should not forget Dr. Mirin Phul, with whom we first sat and brainstormed about how we were going to put this together. And I know there are several others who have contributed to this. We're going to move on to the next part of the celebrations. It's at 7 o'clock downstairs, and that's going to be a musical exposition, and we're going to have more of what Dr. Surinder Singh and Jasveer Rababan told us earlier. We're going to see a practical manifestation of that. So do join us, and thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The amphitheatre is downstairs, and we have people outside to guide everyone. Thank you.